Hello to each and every one of you, BAWLER, and this is important news for you. Subscribe and write in the comments what you think about it. Deep within Russia's Trans-Baikal Krai, in the remote village of Atamanovka, a factory is working non-stop, day and night, on repairing and refurbishing Russian military vehicles to be sent to Ukraine's front lines. But it's not reviving Russia's artillery or its advanced T-90M tanks. No, this plant stands as a symbol of Russia's deepening failure in Ukraine. It's restoring tanks so outdated they have no place on a modern battlefield in 2025. The desperation is evident. Russia is pulling Cold War relics out of long-term storage as its offensives crumble. According to Defense Express, by June 28th, the situation had become so dire that Vladimir Putin began mass reactivation of obsolete tanks to fill the growing gaps. This isn't new. Russia has already deployed Soviet-era tanks from the 1970s throughout the conflict, but now those reserves have run dry, forcing the Kremlin to go even further back, to the 1960s-era T-62. Ukraine's Defense Intelligence, DIU, confirms that the Atamanovka facility is now focused on bringing these ancient machines back to life. Once refurbished, they're shipped to warehouses in the Eastern Military District to await deployment orders. On June 27th alone, the DIU observed the transfer of 21 of these tanks, many still in poor condition. After all, tanks left outdoors for decades with little to no maintenance are only marginally restorable. The DIU's report highlighted the reasoning. With a severe shortage of modern tanks like the T-90M and T-72B3M, the T-62 is a temporary, last resort measure. Putin didn't plan to resurrect 60-year-old tanks. He was forced into it. Russia's tank losses in Ukraine have been catastrophic. Defense Express notes that T-62s were mass-produced starting in 1962. By 2012, about 900 remained, many of which saw combat in Syria. The T-62 isn't new to Ukraine either. Russia used them as early as 2023. That December, analyst David Axe reported the Kremlin had begun upgrading T-62s with add-on armor, mine-clearing gear, and modern sights. Some were even equipped with reactive armor and anti-drone cages, an admission that Ukraine's rockets and drones are a major threat. Yet these upgrades come at a cost. The T-62s still rely on their original 620 horsepower diesel engines. Far less powerful than modern engines, the added weight from armor makes them slower and more vulnerable. Axe noted that the improved T-62s became sluggish, easy targets. By May 2024, T-62s were again spotted in Ukraine's Kharkiv Oblast, this time with anti-drone modifications. A month later, Russia pulled another batch from storage, a strong indicator of dwindling supplies of more advanced tanks. In January 2025, Bulgarian sources revealed a new use for T-62s, converted into armored troop carriers by stripping out internal systems. This shows just how far Russia's shortages have gone. Putin knows the tanks are outdated, which is why he's reassigning them and looking for any possible use. But even these adaptations are reaching their limit. DIU suggests Russia has already used up most of the viable T-62s. What's left are wrecks, barely operational. If Russia's best refurbished T-62s couldn't shift the war's balance, the leftover junk surely won't. The T-62 is a relic, and it shows. According to Army recognition, the tank was introduced in 1961 and produced until 1975. It replaced the T-55 and served as Russia's main battle tank during much of the Cold War. Even the latest models are over 50 years old. The T-62s being restored in Atamanovka may be closer to 60. These tanks feature a 115mm smoothbore gun capable of firing HE rounds over 19,000 feet. When fully loaded, it can fire 40 rounds at a rate of 4 per minute. It also has a 7.62mm PKT machine gun and in later models a 12.7mm DSHKM. But all these are useful only if the tank gets close enough to fire. A major issue given the T-62's slow speed and outdated armor. Its armor, just under 4 inches at the front, is insufficient against modern munitions or drone strikes. Retrofits like reactive armor help slightly but make the tank even slower. The T-62's V55V engine delivers only 580 horsepower, limiting it to about 31 mph over just 279 miles. With upgrades, actual speed is lower, making it even easier prey. Russia is deploying a tank that shouldn't be on the battlefield. It should have invested in new advanced tanks long ago, and it did. But Russia's modern tanks are being destroyed faster than they can be built, forcing Putin back to the T-62. Putin is trying to maintain the illusion of strength through sheer numbers. T-62s are not on the battlefield to win. They're there to absorb ammunition, forcing Ukraine to expend costly drones and rockets. Between February 2022 and June 29, 2025, Russia lost 10,980 tanks, 4 on June 29th alone. That's nearly 281 tanks per month for over 3 years. Losses at this scale aren't sustainable, pushing Russia deeper into its ancient reserves. But this isn't just about losses, it's also about production. On May 31st, the National Security Journal reported that Russia had lost 3,000 tanks and struggled to replace them. That lower figure likely reflects only confirmed losses via satellite. Ukraine's number is based on claimed kills. The truth is likely in between. Still, Russia's tank production is nowhere near enough. The Uralvagonzavod plant produces around 200 T-72B B1 tanks annually, plus 60-80 new T-90Ms, a total of just 260-280 tanks per year. That's what Russia loses in a single month, per Ukraine's stats. Western sanctions have severely limited Russia's access to parts and materials, crippling tank production. This scarcity is why Putin resorts to refurbishing T-62s, because modern parts aren't available, but old tanks don't need them. Russia is now cannibalizing its least viable T-62s to salvage the few that still function, but this cannot continue. Russia hasn't produced new T-62s in 50 years. Putin is simply burning through old stock to sustain the invasion. Interestingly, new reports suggest Russia may have ramped up T-90M production. Euromaidan Press, citing conflict intelligence team, estimates that in 2022, Uralvagonzavod built 60-70 T-90Ms, increased to 140-180 in 2023, and could exceed 250-300 annually by 2024. That's still insufficient, but better. Even so, these tanks aren't going to Ukraine. Why? Because the T-90M has a serious glitch, dubbed the disco head. A turret malfunction causes it to spin uncontrollably when damaged, rendering the tank useless and dangerous to the crew. This glitch famously contributed to a T-90M being destroyed by 2 US-supplied M2 Bradleys in January 2024. The turret failure made it unable to fire, leaving it exposed. So, while Russia may be producing more T-90Ms, they're likely being kept in reserve while engineers try to fix the glitch. Putin doesn't want his flagship tank to become a laughingstock. In contrast, the T-62, for all its faults, is mechanically simpler and at least somewhat reliable. Its turret doesn't spin wildly. This explains why DIU describes T-62 use as temporary. They're being sacrificed as cannon fodder until the T-90Ms are fixed. But time is not on Putin's side. As long as ancient T-62s are on the battlefield, Russian troops remain poorly protected and far less effective. And this undermines the Kremlin's summer offensive, an effort Putin hoped would strengthen his position in any future negotiations with Ukraine. Please support my channel with a small donation. It's not much for you, but for me it's an incentive to keep going and bring you important news. I've included a PayPal link to support my channel in the description for this video. Thank you, that offensive is already faltering. Ukraine has reportedly trapped 50,000 Russian troops in the northeast, and no number of Cold War-era T-62s is going to change that. To see what happens next, stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to the BAWLER for continued coverage of Russia's blunders and Putin's unraveling war effort.